Hello.
Hello there. Hello.
How's it going?
Good, not too bad. How are you doing?
This is a good one, isn't it?
I like this one.
Yeah.
How are
that's nice.
you? How's your week been?
Yeah, it's been all right. Oh, there's so much going on in the world as well as in my own life. So it just becomes so busy, doesn't it?
Yeah, a lot. There's so much to contend with.
Yeah.
Like stuff that you're contending with that you perhaps didn't expect to be contending with, perhaps. Like a little conversation we might be having today.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly. We've had this conversation personally as well, haven't we? About how we didn't quite realise some of the negotiation tactics that were needed as when we become parents, would you say?
Well, when you become parents and just generally, like you end up having to be like an SAS hostage negotiator.
See, I was going UN. You went full throttle. I love it.
Well, like just totally like
SAS.
But it's true. And at no point in my life did I think some of these negotiations I would be having would be like make or break of the day sort of situations. And they can be, can't they?
Oh yeah, they can absolutely affect your entire day, can't they?
Like, what is your number one negotiation that you're having like right now with Sophia?
Definitely the hair. So obviously girls love having long hair when they're little, don't they? Trying to get her to let me brush her hair. Because obviously kids move. They move constantly. I don't know if, Freddie and Max, but she is such a wriggler in bed.
Yeah.
So obviously matted hair is a big thing. So we have lots of like detangler. But my God, trying to get her to persuade her to let me brush her hair every morning, and then she doesn't want plaits, even though I'm saying that's the way to lessen the tats and the knots. And she's like, no, I don't want plaits. I want my hair to be free and down. And I'm like, yeah, that's where the matting because of the yogurt and the ketchup comes from.
But that's where that becomes like a routine though. And for girls especially, or any children with long hair, like that is less of like we'll just do it to look nice and more of a necessity. So
it's survival.
Yeah.
It's generally survival. And we've ended up using bribery. Like we've literally had to say, right, well, you can watch this episode. Because we don't normally have the telly on in the morning when we're getting ready because it distracts her and anything. But by the time we're literally 5 minutes away from when we need to leave the house, and I'm like, right, you can have the telly on, you can have some whatever, you can have some fruit, you can have, I've even gone to the sweet cupboard.
Yeah.
Because it's just got to that level of desperation.
Yeah.
Who knew this is the level I would stoop? I never would have thought I'd get there.
Yeah. And it's so difficult because you've just mentioned about the TV thing. And I don't want to weaponize like the TV because we are a TV household, I guess. We haven't really held back with it. I know just when the boys were really little, I was really hard on no TV while we're eating, no TV when we're doing this. And then, you want to get on and do things and then you want to find a distraction, you want whatever. So you go from one thing to the next. And sometimes I do feel like we rock back into the whole, we're not going to have TV while we eat. And then they don't eat and then you're like, okay, have one mouthful and I'll put the TV on for you. And it's in that sort of negotiation that you're having. It's like, I just never considered that that's how my day would go.
Yeah, and there's so many people, I don't know about you and how your, socials serve you, but there's so many people that kind of go, oh, you don't have to compromise. Just talk to them. Like, you try talking to her at 7 a.m. Oh my God.
No, or 7 a.m. or 6 p.m. after a full day of school.
Witching hour.
Which is worse.
Ooh, yeah.
You're literally we've used this phrase many times already in this few minutes, but survival mode.
Yeah.
Like we get our kids in reality at the worst times of the day. They've just woken up being hustled out the house.
Yeah.
They've just got home from like an 8, 9, 10 hour potentially like day at school and they're on the wind down and we're trying to do their tricky words with them. We're trying to get them in the bath. We're trying to shove a snack down their throat so they don't wake up hungry in the middle of the night. You know, and we've just come off a day of work as well, and like we are like this close to the edge, like inches away from tipping over. We're trying to keep our cool, you know, we're negotiating.
Like the negotiating, like we need like the phone and the megaphone.
Well, that's it. There's this packet of Haribo, like tantalising in the cupboard, like just waiting to be pulled out as a last resort. You know, brush your teeth and then I'll give you a Haribo. Yeah. Like, in what world does that make sense? But it makes total sense.
Yeah. I mean, I must admit, the thing that I always go to, which I want to stop, but I can't help myself, because you really picked up on it a second ago by saying you've had a big day at work. You know, I have many days a week when I'm in back-to-back meetings where I've had to use my brain too much, you know, and I come out and I'm so tired and I'm like, please, Sophia, just go brush your teeth, or please, Sophia, just go do this or whatever. And she's like, I don't want to. And you're just like, look, if you don't do this, I'm going to do this, or this is going to happen. And I try not to use that.
A threat.
Yeah. And it's not like a threat as in sort of like something dreadful is going to happen. But I say something like, look, you won't have a book of a bed, or you know, something to that effect. And then she starts using it against me. Well, I don't think you're being very kind. So if you don't let me do this now, and I'm like, and then I can't blame her because she's learning that behavior from me.
We get that. Okay, well, that makes me feel seen, just hearing you say that. The whole, well, if you do this, I'll do that thing. From the child's perspective,
yeah,
I am getting that now.
Yeah.
And as you say, that's a learned behavior. Then I'm thinking, maybe I need to adjust my tact here, because all I'm doing is creating something I don't like.
They're learning it off each other as well as us. So we've got to be accountable for what we're teaching them, right? I saw a really interesting quote the other day where it says that children won't learn from how we treat them. It'll be how we treat ourselves.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And that's really powerful. But then there is that, you know, we are tired at the end of the day. And if I feel so guilty if I just say to Sophia, Mummy's so tired, because I feel awful saying that to her, because I'm basically saying to her, Mummy's tired and too tired for you. Do you know what I mean? So it's like it's a real balance. I really loved that quote, but at the same time, I can't balance it out with trying to be there present as a really good mum, as a really good parent, giving them a great experience while they're at home, while they're decompressing from school, you know, and trying to give them that healthy experience that sort of is insta-perfect, because it just isn't reality. It isn't something.
And I do think, like, negotiating playtime with your children is a fine art, because you want to be there, you want to engage with them, and you want to be doing what they're doing on that level. But also you need them to learn how to, like, play independently. And if we give too much, then they expect too much. And, you know, I don't think that's necessarily right either. It's a really difficult one to navigate. Like, outside of the like direct child negotiation things, like, what negotiations do you feel like you have with Lawrence potentially over the children that you just never thought you would have? Like, is there like certain like parenting styles or like decision making things that like it is different that you just never considered?
Yeah, it's really interesting, because I think being part of a blended family is really kind of, this is the challenge, because you want to respect the parenting unit, because you're part of that parenting unit, but you're not the core. So there's a real challenge between boundaries that we set Sophia, and then, you know, obviously learned boundaries that we know the parenting unit for the boys, or for Maddie, the eldest, have or have had. You know, you want to respect that, because it's not my choice, it's not my place. I can feed in, but I'm not ultimately the choice or the decision maker.
Hard.
So it's a real challenge. And I think that's where Lawrence and I have to just be really open and honest. And there will be times where we disagree, and there will be times where we approach things differently. And
parenting styles, I guess, potentially.
Yeah, absolutely. So different parenting styles. And it's understanding how to navigate the different realms of kind of lifestyle that these guys are going from and to. You know, there's different worlds that they're coming from in two, and they're having to adapt and being respectful of the fact these kids are going from one home to another home where there's different setups, there's different rules, you know, they might not remember all the rules from your house, and it's just understanding that.
Yeah.
You know, and that's where I have to sometimes take my maybe threshold of expectation down a notch, because that blended approach is all about blending your own kind of boundaries with someone else's.
Yeah, it's that's
very difficult.
That's a lot to navigate, and I can only think of that in terms of like, I don't know, what one would describe as maybe like a nuclear family setup in comparison to a blended family setup where, you know, we're all pretty much most of the time working towards a common goal, the same goal, whereas in a blended setup you've got so many different components you're dealing with. And one of the main things that, you know, I find now, it's not necessarily like negotiating with the children, it's negotiating with Rory our expectations of the children. So for me, like, I firmly believe in, you know, especially like the older children. I think this is just that fine balance between like younger and older children. But with the older like ones, you know, Freddie's 5, I think it's really important that he has choice. So he's confident enough to make his own decisions. And I'm really seeing from him now like a level of indecisiveness that I'm not comfortable with, in terms of maybe we've made too many decisions for him that now he's unsure how to make or stand by a decision. So I'm trying to give him decisions and make him accountable. But then on the flip side of that, Rory often sees that his like negative behaviour in some situation has come from him being given too much choice, too much privilege, I guess you could argue. And then we're at loggerheads from that. Whereas, you know, he thinks, okay, he's 5 years old, we should tell him what he's having, we shouldn't give him a choice. But then I'm like, well, if you don't give the choice, then you end up with an adult who's finds it impossible to make a decision. And
it is really difficult, because I think that kind of, those sort of expectations and things that you sort of develop as a parent, they obviously come from something within you, whether it's that your parents did that or whether they didn't do that, or whether you know, preferred something a certain way depending on, you know, which parent or whatever. And sometimes it's looking at whether it's your thing or whether it's the parenting thing, and how to go about that, and agreeing a way forward that maybe you're both compromising but agreeing a sort of central journey together.
Yeah, it's hard when you've got like, you obviously both want the same positive outcome.
You still want the outcome, yeah, of course,
but it's how you get there. So tell me this. So say there's a family situation happening. How do you and Lawrence navigate that in the moment, in a public space potentially, or with an audience? Like, so the children are in front of you and you've got to make a decision, but you guys don't agree. Like, how do you manage that?
That's a really interesting one. I think there have been moments when we haven't handled it very well. I think there's been moments
99% of the time in my household.
I definitely think there's moments where the kids have seen us at our probably at levels of emotional kind of reactive states that they shouldn't have. But then what we will make sure we always do, once we have calmed down, once we have gotten over that sort of, you know, peak, is that we will sit them all down and go, look, you shouldn't have seen that. We're sorry. You know, we just got very heated because of this reason. We're fine now. You know, so we're always trying to be honest with the kids, like, you know, whatever they say. It's like Sophia, I told her off for something a couple of weeks ago, and then Lawrence came in and went, you shouldn't have told her off. It wasn't her fault. So and so, you know, this had happened. And Lawrence, and I was like, no, she's done this. And I had a go at him, and she saw that. So I'd had a go at her, I'd had a go at him with her witnessing that. And I just literally had to take myself out of the situation, calm down, and then came back in, said sorry to him, said sorry to her. And I kind of like looked her in the eye and I just said, look, Mummy sometimes doesn't always get this right. And I'm always going to try my best. But it's still hard, and it's okay to be little worried.
That's really powerful, actually. That sort of language that you're using in terms doesn't always get this right. But I don't know about you, but often I struggle, and maybe sometimes like Rory struggles like within our household, is we sometimes can like undermine each other by trying to do the right thing or having the back of the child or whatever. And, you know, I'll give you an example of this, but, you know, end of the day, the children were being bathed. Rory got Max out the bath, he's 3.5 now. And Rory was having like fun and games with him, you know, that daddy time, whatever.
The daddy rumble.
Yeah, literally that. But Max was getting so riled up.
And you could see it was going to end.
You could see. And I was literally giving Rory the eye from outside the bathroom, like, stop. He's not using so many words because he's riled up, but he's telling you no. You know, you could see it in his face. You can see with his body language and what he is saying to you. Carried on, like funny. In the end, like Max, like, you know, reached out and smacked him.
Yeah.
And then Rory got angry at Max, understandably, for hitting him.
Yeah.
But then I, as an outsider witnessing the situation, backed Max. And I said to Rory, you know, he had told you no at least 3 times and you carried on. And I then said to Max, Maxie, I know Daddy got you upset just then. Like, you had asked X number of times. And I probably did say in the heat of the moment, you were right to hit him. And maybe that was the wrong thing to say, but you know, I felt for Max in that moment because he had been trying to articulate that he wasn't happy with the situation, and it continued. And had that have been in a school environment, child on child, we would have advocated for Max lashing out after he had clearly said a number of times not to do something. And that was sort of my point, is like, you encourage your children to take a stand in certain situations. If you're not going to then respect their boundaries, what do you expect? And, you know, saw it from Rory's perspective, saw it from Max's perspective. And I don't necessarily think I handled it right, but in the moment, Rory felt incredibly undermined.
I completely understand that kind of scenario. Lawrence and I have that as well. And it's really interesting because I think there's such a difference in the relationship a mother has and a father has with the children, right? So obviously you and I, it's like, I know when Sophia's just about to become tired. I know when she's just about to have a meltdown. I know and I'm like, she's going to do this. This is going to happen.
She's going to blow.
Yeah. And it could be anything. It could be like, I know she's coming down with the cold. I know she's, you know, and I think because, I mean, whether it's biological with the fact that we're the ones that grew in our womb, blah, 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 blah. Who knows? But I think we're more acutely aware of the emotional development or thresholds that the kids have. And I mean, this is massively assumptive. I do not know. I haven't technically, scientifically learned this. But I think with the dads, Lawrence had the same, where he finds it difficult to have that really close relationship that we have with, you know, with Sophia and the boys and things. And when they get that excited moment, that's the daddy rumble, which is what I call it. Like, Lawrence is in his element because he's getting that response from her that he absolutely thrives on. But the problem is he doesn't want it to stop because he's enjoying it too much. And he forgets that she's only little, you know, and it's the same like you're saying with Max. Like, I'm going, Lawrence, I was like, it's bedtime. Can we start kind of, you know, calming it down? And Sophia's like, no, keep going. And I'm like, she's going to bust her gut in a minute. Like, she's going to end in tears. You're not going to be able to get her to sleep. She's going to be wide-eyed and she's going to cause trouble. Like, you know, and then he gets annoyed when she doesn't settle in bed. And again, I actually feel for him. But then a bit like with you, I'll kind of, and it's not that you say, I told you so. You don't want to say that. It's just that you get frustrated because you're like, can you not see? And it's a really difficult one because you're compromising your relationship with your partner and you're literally choosing one over the other.
And this, I feel like we are probably in like the absolute peak of challenging times, age ranges, whatever, with our children now. And I do think it can only get better because, you know, the children will be able to communicate their feelings more. They'll be able to handle more. I feel like now we're in that constant battle where you're out of the baby stage and now you're into this sort of realm of, you know, it could go one way or the other. Like, we're not quite sure and we're all just hoping for the best. And that causes like some degree of conflict. You know, we don't know if the decisions that we're making now are going to be good or detrimental to our children. And I find between Rory and I, those are the negotiations that we're having, is like, your way the right way or is my way the right way?
I think that's a tricky one. And I think it's that whole thing of what will happen. And it's taking it back to living in the moment and making the decision for what you feel with the information you have right now, with the environment you're in and the things that you're experiencing, and making the choice and the decision for now. Don't look at the future, because at the end of the day, you'll deal with whatever comes. Obviously, sometimes the outcomes will be, you know, okay, maybe I shouldn't have made that decision, but fine. Honestly, this still keeps happening. Maddie, bless her, who, you know, is now 22, and I'm sure she won't mind me telling this story, but, you know, when she was 15, my God, did me and Lawrence like battle about her. You know, because she's 15, you know, she wants to be out there. She wants to be socializing. She wants to be out and about. You know, she wants to be wearing nice clothes.
Something you don't approve of.
Something that Lawrence was not happy about, you know. And I'm going, this is what girls do at 15. And me and him would have raging rows about it. And I'm like, this isn't just Maddie. This is a teenage girl. I did that. If anything, she's an angel. I did worse. I used to do this.
Yeah.
Don't you bring your life into... And we would... That's the biggest battles we have has been over Mads. And, you know, I back her through. And then that's when it compromises up my relationship with Lawrence, because he feels I'm choosing her every single time. And again, it's very, very difficult, because do I stand for what I truly believe in the fact that I do believe that, you know, Maddie was doing X, Y, Z, and it's just a common thing that girls do or behave like, or the fear or whatever it is? Or do I go, it's your daughter, really? I'm the stepmom, and it's actually not my place. I've got to follow your decision. And it's a very, very difficult one to navigate. So it's not going to go away.
Yeah.
But...
See, that last sentence you just said in terms of, you know, you're the stepmom, is, I guess you essentially, like, this doesn't come with any like disrespect or whatever, but, you know, you almost have your place there. Whereas where you're, you know, again, you know, not the right phrase, I totally get that, but when you're like both the parents, like the equal parents, whatever, like, you've got that fair 50-50 negotiation.
Yeah, true.
Whereas I guess in your perspective, like, you could be doing absolutely what you feel is right, but ultimately she's not your child.
No.
Hard.
And it's very challenging, but particularly where it's not impacting like a parenting thing.
Yeah.
It's about his attitude towards something, because he's navigating that for the first time, being a dad of a 15-year-old girl. And I'm trying to say, no, that's a normal thing.
And you understand it from a 15-year-old girl perspective.
Absolutely. And that's where he's getting pissed off, because he's like, you're just putting it back. Don't give me your examples. You know, and this is where, again, how do I maintain our kind of partnership and my support for him as the lead parent in Maddie's situation, but then also stick up for the morals and the accurate, you know, observation that I'm making.
Yeah,
it's really, really hard. And I think sort of it would definitely be a different scenario when Sophia's older, but I think there is that tough place that you get to where, you know, how do you battle it out? And when you have had like incidents like that, do you and Rory talk after, when the kids have gone to bed, or when you're on your own, or when when you've got into bed? Do you talk about it openly, or no, or is it something where you're just like in the moment gone?
Yeah, I think it depends. I think it depends like what then comes out of it after. Like, some of those things are very just like in the moment, and then like we'll be heated, and then it will like simmer down and it'll be fine. Or will, you know, like somebody will say, oh, I didn't like that, and then the other person will explain their rationale. So in that situation, I explained, like, he had clearly tried to communicate with you and you ignored him. Like, yes, in the moment you felt I'd undermined you, but, you know, then maybe he understood that. So it really, like, totally depends. And I think it's just so hard because everybody's got the best intentions and nobody wants to, like, do something wrong. And, like, we've used this phrase a few times, but, like, it's pretty much our first rodeo, and every child is different. And, like, every situation, even as an adult, you go in and you feel you have to negotiate is different. Like, you know, we're negotiating what holiday we want to go on, what we spend our money on, like what we, you know, what is a priority and what isn't. Like, you know, for me, you know, a new bed sheet is a priority. For Rory, it's something else. Like, it's life is that negotiation. And then the children thing on top of that is just additional stress at the wrong time of the day.
Yeah, but I think you're right. That, you know, you're picking up on the time of the day as well. If you think about it, the emotional sort of journey that you go on, and your temper does become shorter, and things, you know, don't become as sort of, you're not as resilient to things as what you were, and you know, there's a real tactical balance that you make, and you compromise. And what are you willing? You know, is it that actually you let the bed sheet go because it's easier? Do you know what I mean? Which things do you let go of to help, and which things does he let go of?
And that's the thing. And it's like the children, I know we've spoken about, like, the children eating situation before, and, like, the choice, and do you feed them this or do you feed them that? And it's like, you know, I actually don't care if you have, you know, Shreddies and Cheerios mixed in a bowl, or if you have X and Y or whatever. As long as you're eating, then I'm fine with that. But it's when the biggest thing for me is when you're trying to deal with the whole, I know you need to eat, but what you are choosing to eat is not going to be a good decision, and you don't want anything else, and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, oh, great, well, you wanted bagel, you've got toast, or you wanted a banana and you wanted an apple, like, blah. Like, I don't need that level right now. Just eat something you're happy with.
But is that the compromise again, where, you know, you're it's interesting, because it's a bit like sort of in our household, I was never brought up on all the sugary cereals.
Yeah.
And obviously the kids love sugary cereals.
Yeah.
And to me, I'm like, nah, no, not in the, you know, don't start the day on full sugar. Let's start on something a little bit healthier, you know, balanced or what have you. But then at the end of the day, if you just want them to frickin' have something to eat so you can get in the car and go,
give them the sugary cereal.
Give them the damn cereal. Do you know what I mean? And do deal with it later.
Yeah.
And I think that's okay. I think, you know, I don't really feel guilty. I don't know whether I should or not, but I think at the end of the day, I balance it out. And I think I'm very lucky. Sophia will balance it out. Like, she's quite happy to have Greek yogurt instead of like a chocolate mousse.
So good. And do you know what? Maybe that's something they're learning at school, right? I'll tell you a quick story. So we're going on holiday next week. We said to the children, oh, you know, if you sleep on the plane, because it's a night flight, sleep on the plane, you can have ice cream for breakfast. We used this tactic last time. Kids loved it. Great. Rock up, whatever time it is in the morning. First thing, get an ice cream. Great. Said it to Freddie this time. He was like, I don't want that. It's not healthy for the morning. So I feel like they're maybe learning it. He was like, but Mummy, I want fruit. And I was like, I don't care. You have whatever you want as long as you sleep.
I'll give you
That's my negotiation. Anything you want, you sleep on that flight. Like, you sleep.
It's interesting. Sophia's, maybe it is they're getting taught at school, because Sophia says a similar thing. She's, you know, she knows what's healthy and what's too much sugar and what's not. And she knows about natural sugar and artificial sugar. Yeah. So she knows that sweets have got artificial sugar, and not that she can say artificial, which is incredibly cute, but she got artificial, I think.
Sounds like me after
a few glasses. Everything's artificial.
Yeah.
Maybe not actually, it's the other way, isn't it? We've had too much to drink. But yeah, Sophia's very aware, and she wants to know if this is healthy, if it's not, what's healthier. You know, like tonight we had French toast for dinner. you know,
lovely, delicious. Where was my invite? That sounds delightful.
So again, it was one of those things where, you know, I was tired, couldn't be bothered, so she had French toast. And I was like, right, do you want it savoury with some ketchup or do you want it with some mango and some strawberries? And she was like, which is healthier?
Wow.
And I was like, well, I don't know. I was like, probably the fruit, maybe, because actually the ketchup's processed.
Yeah.
And I'm like looking at Lawrence going, I don't know, what should I, you know, like, and he's going, what do you want? Which one do you want? You know, because her first question was, which one's healthier?
That's so funny. It's like then you're negotiating on a negotiation.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, just sleep, eat, get to bed, get in the bath, whatever. Like, I don't know about you, but we've got any number of toys now up in our bath because it's the only way to get them up.
Oh.
I'm like, just don't bring on with batteries, please. Like, leave that one downstairs.
Do they try and bring toys into the bath that are not bath toys?
100%.
Oh my God,
and they
yes.
know
Sophia
it
does it
as
all
well.
the time.
They know it. They seek out the toys. Like, bath toys are in the bath, non-bath toys are downstairs. We've got more and more now being transferred.
Yeah. That's the same with us. And what really gets me is the water inside them. You know, the water that gets trapped in, and I'm like trying to squeeze it out. And I'm like, the water's going to go stagnant. It's going to become like poisonous.
But then you're having a negotiation for like health benefit, like that side of it. It's like, no, don't squeeze that toy in your eye because that water's mouldy. Like, oh, don't do that. I'll give you this. It's like, well, should that be, or should you just be listening to me? And I think sometimes that's where Rory and I disagree. Is like, you shouldn't be negotiating. They should just be respecting what you are saying.
Like a boundary that you're
respecting
giving.
the boundary that you're setting rather than giving them the opportunity. Do you see what I mean? And
I do.
That's so difficult. But, you know, then we're very quick to say, oh, well, if you do this, you'll get that. So, you know, we can't win, and we ourselves undermine our own things that we're saying by contradicting it.
And don't kids remember that? They are unbelievable. Well, last Tuesday you said, and I'm like, oh my God.
They have the most amazing memories, actually. And this is something new that has come up. So Rory has started like playing some games with Freddie on like a console. And on an evening, if Freddie's been like really good behaviour or we've got good feedback from school, he'll be allowed to do it all, or for a number of reasons. And sometimes I'm sure Rory will, like, I guess, promise to Freddie that he can do something. And then that day comes around, something crops up, whatever, we don't do it. And then he'll be like, oh, but Daddy, you promised. Daddy, you promised. Because that just shows, like, what we're focusing on and what the child is focusing on is very different.
Yeah.
And then Freddie will get upset. And then Rory and I have this conversation about, oh, it's a breakdown of trust. You've promised in the moment that he could do something, whether that be a day in advance, 2 days in advance, a week in advance. He's remembered that. You then don't go through with that. You're then playing into that whole thing of you're going to be let down.
Yeah, it's God.
Hard that. This is that fear I then have about not knowing the impact of the decisions that you make on your children until much later on, based on our own experiences. Like, we had that big conversation a couple of weeks ago about like friendships and actually those breakdowns and how that can really shape you as an adult. And in the back of my mind, I'm always thinking this really tiny bit of broken trust from you can play on this game, oh no, you can't today, it's busy, we're tired, whatever, just chips away. And it's not intentional, but
I think that's where we can be totally paranoid about those impacts. And look, I mean, I come from what I would literally now class my childhood still, after a number of years of therapy, as still a happy childhood. But that doesn't mean to say I've just had 15 years of therapy about elements of my childhood.
Yeah. Wow.
So at the end of the day, that reflecting on that journey I've been on, observing the fact that, like you're saying, you get shaped by what's happened in your childhood, good, bad, ugly, whatever, like those things are going to happen. As long as you're true to yourself and you feel that you're making the right decision with the information or the situation that you're in, and that was the best decision you could make on that Tuesday because you'd had a really tough day at work, you recognize that, it was probably not the right thing to do, but, you weren't putting them in harm where you weren't presenting any danger. Do you know what I mean? It's a really difficult pill to swallow, but I think there is something about us all as parents, as, you know, the community that are bringing up all these kids, to recognise that none of us are here to harm the children, and we want the best outcome. We want them to be the best they can be. And sometimes there may be moments where things will like impact later down the line.
It's the fear, though.
It's awful and it's trying to absolve yourself of the guilt and the anxiety, but recognise that you can help along the way, you know?
Totally. And I think the therapy thing is something we 100% need to come back to, because like, I know obviously you've had lots of therapy, you've looked at therapy yourself, like I've had therapy at different stages of my life, and it'd be really interesting like to touch on that. And I wonder if like that is part of what our apprehensions are about our decision making, is we don't want our children to necessarily find themselves in therapy. However, I do think in 15 years' time, everyone will be in therapy, because that will be the thing to do. But, you know, I do worry.
I totally hear that, and I hear the worry, because I feel the same. And particularly because of the depths of therapy I've been in, I don't want Sophia to experience the darkness that I unfortunately went to. Now, that wasn't anything to do with childhood memories and things that had happened in my childhood. But life is lifing, and you know, things happen. We're all on paths, whether it's fate, as we talked about, or whether it's, you know, whether it's something that just happens. We don't know. And I think there's being kind to yourself and understanding that you love the kids. We all love each other's kids, and we're all here to help them. And you know, there's a path that needs to be taken, and you know, we'll deal with it when we get to it. And that's all you can do. And I do try and be quite honest with Sophia. We have girly chats in the bed on when, you know, when she's going to sleep, and I just say, "How was your day? Were you okay? You know, Mummy got a bit angry earlier. I'm sorry for that, but you know, sometimes Mummy doesn't always get it right, and you know, I'm trying my best, and I love you very, very much." So at least she's going to sleep with the knowledge that I love her and she's fantastic. And you know, it's almost like trying to sort of do what you can in the limits that you've got. Because if you think about it, if your cup is not full, you can't give. Yeah. So if you have got a semi-empty cup, it's so hard. And I'm not saying that we can't, you know, don't absolve yourself from a thing that you've done fully, but be kind to yourself. But these things happen.
A semi-empty cup, I wouldn't say is abnormal.
No, my God.
And again, we've spoken about before, like we don't want to set unrealistic expectations either, in terms of you've got to be perfect, you've got to be a perfect parent, you've got to make the right decisions. Like, in actually showing that vulnerability, showing, you know, the ability to apologise, recognise where you've maybe made a mistake, but that's normal to make mistakes. I think that in itself, like, shapes our children. And sometimes when I look at Freddie and Max when they are trying to negotiate with me, I just want to give them a round of applause.
Some of them are really clever.
Brilliant. They're amazing. And Rory and I often say to them, like, well done.
Yeah, like, we do that.
Well done. Like, that's really good. You've got us twisted here. But it's funny, but then they laugh, and like you see the faces they pull. Like Freddie sometimes comes up to me and is like, "Oh, if I do this, can I have that?" And he's got this big cheeky smile on his face. And I'm like, fair. Whatever, fair.
Honestly, the amount of times where Lawrence and I have given each other the side eye and gone, yeah, fine, okay. You've proven a point. Like, and I'll never shy away. And that's where I never, like you were saying about sort of the boundary setting and you know, that kids should do certain things at different stages in their lives, and that's absolutely fine, and we will absolutely do that. But if they're coming to you with a negotiation and you just think, well, to be fair, they've made a bloody good point, they've done this, they've ticked all the boxes we would have normally asked them.
Business case.
Yeah, they've done it, so why not? And what's to say that one little thing doesn't spark an incredible idea later down the line?
Yes, I love that. I love that. I think that's a really good point to end on, is ultimately everything that we do, good and bad, is shaping the future. And who are we to know? You know, you can't call it. You've just got to, as long as you're doing the best. And that's why I love having these sort of conversations, because any like worry or like thing that you're concerned about, it just like puts it into perspective. And I think just having the forum to like share these conversations and share these thoughts, and that's why we just want anybody that is listening to also like just share their thoughts. Like, what do you want to chat about? What are you thinking about? Like in your groups of friends, like what are those like really big conversations that you're having right now? Like I'm sure we're probably thinking about them as well.
Yeah. And I mean, you know, I think the amount of conversations that we can potentially have is amazing.
Totally.
And, you know, even getting people on to talk about things as well could be a really exciting venture for us. Yeah. Because that's the thing as well. I think we've got to, you know, just remind ourselves that, you know, we are trying to do this. We're trying to get there. We're trying to do things. And it's about being kind to ourselves. We're human. We've all got human emotional reactions. And it's okay. We don't have to be the world's biggest child expert. We don't have to, you know, be Insta perfect, you know, taking our kids to these wonderful places and things.
We're just real. We're like, we're real people. We're just, you know, we're figuring out as we go, as we say, we've got this, maybe we do, maybe we don't, we're not sure. But the only thing we are sure of is that we really need and want people to like follow, subscribe, like let us know like what you're loving about these episodes, you know, leave us a review. We get so many really positive comments on socials, which is amazing.
It's
like,
so sweet, the DMs we're getting and some of the messages that we're getting, and we're really grateful to everybody. And, you know, share it with your friends. If you think some of these messages or conversations that we're having that, you know, if they resonate with you, like, tell a friend.
Yeah, because it's just a community. Like, we're all in this together. We're all figuring it out as we go, as we say. But yeah, that's a good one. I love that one.
Oh, here's to your holiday.
Yeah, I know. Woo, cheers.
Can't wait. Cheers.
Yeah, I'll let you know.